Well, good afternoon. I'm Darcy Backyard with Prairie Public's Web Chats, and today we're going to do a little chat about digital reflections. So the goal today is pretty straightforward. I want to share a couple simple tools, the emphasis being on simple. Simple for you as a teacher to integrate, simple for students to execute. The tools that would help get more kids involved in more conversations in the classroom. So as a high school English teacher, I think I did a pretty good job of having actual voices in discussion circles and things like that. But there were always students who that's not their comfort zone. That's not where they're comfortable. That's not how they don't like being put on the spot. So I want to try to have as many different strategies in my classroom so that I'm hearing from every student, even if they might not be volunteering their answers out loud in some of those discussions. So I'm holding every kid accountable, making sure that they're reflecting on what we're talking about, but I'm honoring the fact that different kids have different comfort levels of how they want to do that. So that's the goal today, that we're going to talk about some different digital reflection tools. So up in the chat box, if you're here live, or in the description down in the video link, there's a link to this digital reflections little toolkit so that you can follow along, you can get these resources and make a copy for yourself. The goal today is just immediately useful tools. Let's start. I know we have Troy on with us today, but Troy, what grade do you teach and where?
I'm third grade at Jefferson.
Great. And my next question, just in general, what are your favorite strategies right now? Low tech, no tech, just how do you help hear your students and gather different student reflections?
Well, I guess what I've been doing now is just having like the reading or writing conference time so that I can go over, like we do the editing and then they come back and just pull one at a time so I have one-on-one time with them. But I watched that video last night, and that Storybird is something that I'm interested in, looking at some of those other ones where we can try something new.
Yeah, mix it up. That's really cool.
Yeah.
How do you structure the time for the kids when you're doing individual conferences? Kind of, can you describe what that looks like in the classroom when you're conferencing with other students? Just what does that look like?
Well, I have my writing block split up this year. So I do it in the morning to teach the lesson, and then model it, and then we do it, and then it's the they do part of the day, and then they're all sitting working on the writing assignment in their seats or on the Chromebooks. Once they're introduced, they were just brought in now this week. So they're all working on writing, and then I just call one back, and I have a student teacher right now, so she's calling one back. So we're getting through them a little faster, but it's just one-on-one, going over some story points, trying to give them some clues on what would be, a way to help their writing improve.
That's awesome. Some of my favorite, and I had older kids in high school, so some of my basic strategies, one of my main goals was anytime we were talking about a novel or talking about a concept, I wanted the students to be leading the conversation as much as possible. And so kind of after the first month of me modeling, like, here are some activities that we do in class to stimulate discussion, as we got into novels, the second half of the first semester, students became the discussion leaders. And I never made anyone a discussion leader by themselves. They were always in groups of like 3 to 5 kids. So they did not have the burden of discussion fully on them. But we would do whole 45, 50-minute class periods where our task for the day is we're going to talk about these 2 chapters. So again, high school English, pretty different. But they would have an assigned group of chapters, and then their responsibility as discussion leaders was they had to have an activity that everyone in the class participated in and made everyone contribute some information about the And I always loved what students came up with as interactive activities. So we played quite a bit of Pictionary, right? But they did some cool things where they would say, draw your favorite moment from the book, and then write, you know, a little passage from the text and why this was important to you, and then do little gallery walks. So it was kind of a sneak peek also into other people's classrooms, because you could tell that the kids had picked up some of these teaching techniques just by being students, you know, as you would expect. And they then would guide the conversation, and I would participate as a student. And I found that that was pretty helpful, because I've talked about The Great Gatsby and Frankenstein. I've talked about these concepts in these books, you know, for a decade. So I'm good. But it was always helpful to have students be part of the discussion leader, because it really shifted the emphasis to what they were interested in talking about. And certainly one of my other favorite simple things to do to gather everybody's voice is I would stand by my classroom door as students came in, and I would have a question posted on the board. And at the door, I would hand every child a Post-it note. And this was twofold, right? It gave me an opportunity to say hello to every single kid as they entered the room, and just to remind them, and I would hand them a Post-it and say, answer the question up on the board. And then it would be any variety of question, right? What was your main takeaway from yesterday? Or answer one of these two questions. What is still unclear from yesterday? So it's kind of like that entry ticket, exit ticket concept, where you're just getting that quick pulse for kids. And I love note cards or pieces of paper or Post-it notes for simple things like that. The first thing that I want to share is Adobe Spark. The two main tools I'm going to share today are free. They're pretty easy, and they allow students to create different types of responses is kind of the goal. Now, something like Adobe Spark does require the students to have an account, and for an elementary school classroom, that I know that would be very cumbersome. But West Fargo High School tech guru Hillary Birch, she shared that some teachers at West Fargo use Adobe Spark, and they, as the teacher, just create one account, and then all the students create their projects in that teacher account. So that way they also can do peer feedback. So there's some risks, right? Kids can open each other's projects, but what a nice opportunity to talk about digital citizenship. And I think in general, there are ways to do that without kids deleting each other's work, and just kind of in general having a pretty easy time. But this is what Adobe Spark looks like. So this is my Adobe Spark account. And this is how simple it is. You click the plus sign, and then it asks you what kind of project do you want to create. So you can create any kind of graphic response, you can create web pages, you can create videos. A note about the videos, they're closer to like an animated slide deck. You can upload actual video clips, but they function a little bit more like an animated slide deck, which is one of the reasons why they're so easy to make. But a student can add photos, a student can add voiceover narration. So there are some cool things that you can do. So I have like this just as a simple response of make a character response, you know, summarize a character in visual form. So go in, pick a graphic, and then because the tool is pretty easy, when you want to click on a photo, you just click this add, and then you can either upload a photo or you can search for free photos right here that are built into Adobe Spark. So they've made it pretty simple that you can just search for images, and then you can, you know, change your filters. So I have this little character story about Ophelia. And so Ophelia reflecting on life with Hamlet, you know, he runs to me, then runs away, all dark and mysterious. I'm perfectly puzzled and falling apart, so alone. So that these 3 images and this simple text kind of function as a reflection of my takeaways from Ophelia. Certainly, if you had a class account and these were all up, then students could go in and look at other people's pictures, or you as the teacher now, if you're in one group account, you could print all of the pictures, and now you can do all kinds of things. You can do a gallery walk. You could cover up the character, right? Remove the character's name and have the kids guess who is this character in what we're talking about. You could certainly do the same thing for any science concept, for a social studies concept, for a historical figure, and then have students have to match up. If you did something like this with a graphic, I as a teacher could easily cut off the little text at the bottom, right? And now as students come into the classroom, I could give one kid the pictures and one kid the text description, and now you have to find your partner. So you have to find the explanation of the chemical reaction that's in the pictures. You have to find the description of the historical person who's being depicted. So all kinds of ways, and then when they find each other, whatever kind of activity you want can ensue, can progress from there. But I'm making the kids reflect individually, and then if I use it as a starting activity, or if I post these posters around the room and then have kids leave Post-it note or handwritten comments as feedback and other reflections, I'm making them reflect on this new content that they're seeing. So the kids are reflecting on what they're learning when they make it, but they're also reflecting on what they've learned when they comment on it or when they interact with it. I also think that these Adobe Spark makes really kickin' easy websites. So this is I literally put this together as a demo in 25 minutes. And granted, I used all my own photos and all my own links, so it was pretty easy, but it's one of these nice scroll websites. So I can add links to other websites. I can embed videos. I can upload photos. When I go through, I can add text over photos. I can add buttons to link to things. And if we preview this site, I can show you what it looks like. Be thinking, how could you use like a website? This is obviously a much larger reflection, right? So this might be a reflection on a whole unit. But if I go back up to my travel journal, up to the top, as I scroll through, this takes me to a travel blog. So as a student, I could curate different content and reflect in different ways. I can link to different resources of, here's this cool slide deck. I can embed these videos right here of, here's this video. I can link that video right there so kids could take videos of themselves explaining a concept or find a video that explains a concept. I can have a photo gallery. And then as I go down, it has this nice glide picture show. So I can add buttons, I can add text over images. So again, think of all the different science concepts, math problems. How interesting could it be to have students reflect in writing and visual graphics on a math concept or on a series of math concepts? What is your understanding of addition? What is your understanding of multiplication? Make a visual representation of those concepts. I can embed little videos over images to tell stories about food. So again, these were all, it was easier for me because these were all photos that I have, and so it was a little bit easier, but I can scroll through the photo with this. You can link, add comments. So a lot of different things that I could explain, explore, or do with Adobe Spark and the web page feature. The last tool on Spark is the video. And like I said, it's called a video, but it functions much more like a slide deck. But you can upload photos, you can upload different content to that. But when you do the video, you can add text, you can add graphics. So this is Adobe Spark, 3 different types of projects, 3 different types of reflections, some very quick, and obviously a video reflection or a web page would be a much more in-depth reflection. But think about how you might use any of those tools. It's called Adobe Spark. Troy, for you, is anything sparked of how you might use this or a different tool like this?
Actually, I recognize the Ophelia on Life of Hamlet from that video that I told you I just watched last night. And I did mention then that I could see using it for writing the title of the book and then having the students try to identify the moral of the story or the author purpose of the story, because that's kind of some of the things that can be harder for them. And so that's what I was thinking of, just kind of coming up with some pictures that represent the story. And then also I thought like the student connections, because that's another, that goes back to what you said earlier of how you might try to get to know the students more, what they're thinking, what are they connecting to that I might never make a connection to with this book, you know, the house or the animals or the food, or a lot of times it's the food that they can't eat because, you know, for religious reasons, they don't eat this type of food or this type of food, or so there's lots of different things that don't even come into mind for me that I take for granted until I see their point of view.
I love that idea though of asking like that last thing of make a poster or make a visual representation of what in this book has connected to you like the most personally, and then have a conversation about why different parts of the book are connecting to different people for different reasons. I think that's a really beautiful way to acknowledge that it's like a reader response gathering, right? Of every reader has a different response to any text, and every reader's response is valid for different reasons. And I like that that would give them space to talk about like, oh, you know, I've never been to the ocean. And so I have no, like, I'm really curious about what it's like living in that place because I've never seen the ocean, and get to pick some pictures of, you know, like the ocean is what has really intrigued me. And you're right, as a teacher, we have just such different experiences than our students that it's, we don't always think about, I'm always amazed at the things, even when I have students lead discussions about books, A, we always end up talking about the things that are important from an academic point.
Right.
B, we talk about things that never occur to me, and they come up with other cultural references of like, oh, this is like that video, and you know, I'll have no idea what they're talking about, but the other students in the classroom do. And now they're building connections with each other, and they're building connections with the text in a way that wouldn't have happened with just me. On this, on slide 9 in that packet, I have a few different little ideas. I also love the idea of doing book snaps. You can do so many things with Adobe Spark. Again, there are lots of tools that function similarly. You could do a lot of these same things with a Google slide deck or a PowerPoint slide, right? The graphics, making pictures. You could certainly, you as the teacher, could create a Google slide deck or a PowerPoint in Office 365 and share it with the class, have an instruction slide, and then ask every student to create a new slide and add your content. So now you have a class slide deck that everyone has responded to, and you can do any of these same ideas. So you don't need something like Adobe Spark. I just like how simple it is and the simple layout, and I think it makes pretty clean graphics. But I also firmly believe that sometimes less is more with technology, And if there's already something that you're using that can do these same things, kids don't need to relearn, they don't need to learn 14 different tech tools. Find a couple of your favorite things that do multiple different things and then use them in different ways. So there are 1,000 ways to use Google Slides or a PowerPoint slide deck. If you are interested in Adobe Spark, I've also linked to a couple other great articles by tech gurus like Matt Miller about 5 ways to use Adobe Spark video in your classroom. Again, remember video might be a little generous of a term. It's much more of a slide deck. But also tech speaker Monica Burns has some ideas for using Adobe Spark, particularly for making movie making in the STEM classroom and using that video feature to really help students reflect on the process of any scientific or engineering experience. So those are in the slide deck as resources if you want just a few more ideas on using these things. The other tool that if you haven't used, I'm just gonna go out on that limb and say, yeah, you can do what you do on Adobe Spark with other things. FlipGrid is just the best. It's a tool that is so easy to use, and it is such a great way to get kids talking. I don't think there's anything else that is so user-friendly, teacher-friendly. The kids do not need accounts. You as a teacher have an account. When you create an assignment, you share an assignment link with your class, and then all they have to do is click on the link, and there's usually a classroom password. They're kind of upping the security, and that's a good thing, right? They're helping us protect our students so that only the people that we want to be able to access this information. If a random person suddenly got a hold of our assignment link, the classroom password makes it so that they can't just log in, right, and see the kids' videos or post inappropriate videos of their own. So you give them that classroom code, they type that in. It's the same for every link. It's not like, it's just a code for your classroom grid. And when you go there, your grid is gonna look like this. You're gonna have different classes. So if you teach multiple different classrooms, you can set up multiple grids for different things. Or you could set up different grids for different subjects if you want. But within my grid, I can create multiple assignments. So you can see my different assignments in here. And when I go into this assignment, Animal Farm News, you can see I have the assignment description. This is what I want the students, this is my expectations. For every chapter in Animal Farm, these students were required to post a news report. So in this example, I'm making them think about genre. So there are some that are more informative based, some that are more narrative, fictional based, some that are a little bit more persuasive in terms of different types of writing. And I'm making them as readers reflect on what they thought was the most important part of what we just read. There are dozens of ways to do this, right? You could have a question as simple as, what was your favorite part of the assignment today? Or at the end, use this as an exit ticket. Post a question. What is one question you still have from today? Or what is something that you think you could teach other people? Then students post their video, and then you can watch these videos. You as the teacher can control, can the whole class see the video responses, or can only the teacher? And there are obviously different times when you might want students to be able to see. For something like this, I want the students to see each other's videos of summaries, because now we can use those to launch our class discussion. Because FlipGrid was purchased by Microsoft this summer and it's completely free for all teachers, students can even post video responses to each other's videos. So I want you to see what this looks like as a student. So here's my link. This is what I would share with a student. And then when a student comes in, hopefully I remember my grid password. This is what the kids see, right? And so they see the assignment description, and then this is literally what they do. They click this gigantic plus circle, but it will give them a countdown, and then they record their video. And now I can watch these other little videos.
We're here to give you a report on sports happening at Amplify. Okay, for sports, there's bad news. The hardest to remember was, well, we don't really know.
Okay, so I'm biased. These are my nieces. This was like a book study that I did with my nieces, and I made them do these videos because I'm an evil aunt who wanted them to reflect on their learning in a different way. But it forced them to interact. It forced them to interact with the text. And there are all kinds of different ways to do this. You can just do it as a general reflection, right? You can ask them, what other questions do you have? And now we as a class can view these, or like I said, you can keep it private, so only you as the teacher. If it's something that you're asking them, like where's something that you still, what are you still confused about? You might not want other students to be able to see those. You might want to leave it as just you can see it. But now imagine that students are doing a math problem or a chemistry problem or working on anything, and you say, record a FlipGrid video and explain to me how you got your answer. So now I'm sitting at my desk, I have my camera, and I'm going to record myself, and I'm going to hold up my paper, and I'm going to show, so this was my first step, and I'm going to talk through my steps and explain how I got my answer. The videos can only be 90 seconds, so they can't be very long. You're limited to 90 seconds, and the kids get a countdown. It shows them how long it's taking. You can pause while you're recording, so that if they want to shift positions or if they want to, switch books, they can pause so they can bring up different information. There's all kinds of ways to do this. I had a third grade class share last year some ideas on music and movement.
I'm going to be talking about movement and music. I like it.
And this is a third grade classroom. They just ran with this and explained, they answered the question. You can see that as a teacher, you can give them feedback right here. There's a little built-in rubric. You can leave them comments, and you can do little emoji like feedback. So the kids can leave each other like little happy heart emoji feedback if you have that feature turned on and you have it so that the students can view the grid. But I also love, if you did have students, for me, if I said, all right, today we learned about semicolons, record a video, and I want you to explain back to me the purpose and how semicolons function. So now in the course of a day, I'm going to have 75 different students explain that to me. I could certainly have them do it in partners so that I have fewer videos. But now the next day when we're going to review that concept, or a month from now when we're going to review that concept, instead of me explaining it, I have the videos of 75 teenagers that could explain that concept to their peers. Or if someone was absent, I can send them the video of a student explaining how to do this math problem, again, instead of me having to explain. I find so often that kids, my general policy on explaining things, right, first go ask a peer and then ask me. There's always that, like, right, try to find the answer yourself. But when a student does ask me to re-explain something, if they still don't get it, I always tell them, this is not your fault. I am clearly not explaining this in a way that clicks with your brain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in contact with a couple of your peers who do seem to get it, and I'm gonna see if they can explain it in a way that works better. So this isn't because you are struggling. A good portion of why you're not understanding this is because I'm clearly not explaining it in a way that's working with your brain. So I try to shift it so that I acknowledge just different people understand different. I mean, that's how it was when I was a student, that kids, I would understand something or not understand something. And by talking to peers about it, I could get it if I couldn't understand the way the teacher explained it. So I love that FlipGrid gives you a whole built-in tool of just going, oh, like you're not understanding how I'm explaining this problem. Here are 5 FlipGrid videos from your peers. Watch these videos and then see if that shifts anything. Like, does that help you understand how to do the problem? So I love that not only could you use FlipGrid to get students to reflect on their own learning, but you can really use FlipGrid to help explain learning to other kids and help them figure other things out. That's FlipGrid. If you want, I would love, and anyone who's doing the North Dakota PD credit, you're gonna have to test FlipGrid. One of your tasks to get credit for watching the recording of this video is to go to FlipGrid and record a little response so that you can see how simple it is. I've also provided the FlipGrid link to my Animal Farm assignment if you wanted to just see what that looks like and how you can do. But there are so many fun things. Like, I love the idea of doing character interviews, right, as the start of a discussion. All right, so today you're going to interview each other. So back to Troy's point of getting to know each other, why not use FlipGrid to do introductions of classmates, right? And have students practice interview skills. So have student A interview student B, and then student A records a FlipGrid video introducing student B. So they don't record a video introducing themselves. They record a video, or you could do that, but why not have them record videos introducing each other, or interviewing each other, or pretending to be characters from history or characters from a book, or different molecules, right? I'm a hydrogen molecule, you're an oxygen molecule. Let's have a conversation about how the two of us could hook up. And what if it became some of these concepts where you're asking them to think as the characters? What a cool way, like you're Romeo, you're Juliet, have a conversation about the night you first met. And what was it like? And give each kid in the class a different little topic, each partnership a different topic, and then use those videos as your class discussion, right? So we listened to the video of Romeo and Juliet talking about how they met, and now we're gonna hear from Mercutio and how he felt that night. Because Romeo was a super loser at the beginning of the night, didn't want to do anything, is totally depressed. And by the end of the night, he's head over heels in love with Juliet. His best buddy Mercutio might have some things to say about how ridiculous that is and how fickle Romeo is. So all kinds of things you could do. Certainly you could use it just to straight up record experiments. All right, we're gonna run this experiment in our classroom. We're trying to figure out how we're working on a mass, measuring mass. We're working on velocity. We're working on any kind of experiment. We're gonna record a FlipGrid video of our experiment and then post a second follow-up video explaining how the experiment went. I love this because it takes away the tension of writing. For a lot of kids, they get so hung up, even in high school, in the spelling and the wording and how to phrase things. I love that this is just a video and the kids don't have to write anything, but they are still very much reflecting on what they're doing. So that's FlipGrid. I keep putting you on the spot, sorry Troy, but any reactions, any ideas of how you might use, or have you used FlipGrid in your classroom?
I haven't used FlipGrid in my class, and I am like, I go to all these tech camps all the time, and my problem is I want to try everything and do everything. And then I get so many in my brain. I'm like, now which one should I start with?
Yeah.
So I would like to do this. I was thinking like maybe a book report and arguing the best book. This is the best book because, and just have them take off on that, just to get a collection of what the most popular books are in 3rd grade or something.
Yeah, I suggested this on Twitter and in our conversation on Tuesday, but I like that idea. Not only could you do that, you could do that for the whole school and have book recommendations. When you set up your grid, you could have different entries, different assignments for different genres. So you can make it so that a student can just log in. So a student, I can give students just this Educator Idea Lab class, and then they can see all of these different assignments. You could easily have a different assignment for a different genre of book. So kids click on that assignment and then they add their review of a book. So now I'm a kid and I don't know what to read because I hate reading and there's never anything good. So I can go to this FlipGrid now and I can go, oh, sports books. I kind of like sports books, maybe. And I could click on the collection of sports books and then have a whole grid of recommendations. And I love your take on it, Troy, of saying, argue why this is the best book. And so now when I'm listening to these reviews, I hear a whole bunch of kids talking about, well, I love Chris Kutcher's whatever. I love this book because, and they're explaining why they love that book. So not only is, again, I love FlipGrid for this integration. Not only is child A reflecting on what they've done, what they've read, what they've learned, but all of these other kids get to benefit from that reflection. And I just think that that is very cool, because I agree with you. There are so many tech tools. When teachers ask me if there's one thing that I should try, what would it be? For me, at this point, it's FlipGrid. I think it's that easy, and I think there are so many ways that you could use it, that if you were at that point where you're like, all right, I'm going to integrate one new tech tool, you know, every semester or every year, whatever your teacher goal is, because it's easy for us as teachers to go, oh, I'm not doing enough. There's way too much for us to do. We cannot try everything. We cannot use everything. So I agree with that general strategy. So pick one thing at a time and figure out how to really maximize and use that. And like I said, for me, the last year, it's been FlipGrid. And now this summer with Microsoft purchasing it and making it used to be there was a free version of FlipGrid, and then there were fancier features that you had to pay for. And now all of the features are free. So the fancier features, like responding to each other in video, is free. There's also this really cool Grid Pals. This was one of the paid features that is now free. So you can activate yourself so that other teachers around the country can find you and create conversations via FlipGrid between students in your classes. So if you're interested in hearing, like, all right, not only do we want to hear what my students, because like to Troy's point where he was talking about, it's so cool to hear different kids' perspectives on different books. Well, what if you could hear different kids' perspectives on different books from other classrooms around the country? And certainly you could do that with something like a mystery Skype, but you can set up this lovely little Grid Pals, and then other Grid Pals can view your profile, and you can set up some little social connections so that you can connect to other teachers who might want to try out different things. So I just think that that's I just think it's so simple. You'll be able to figure it out. When you want to create a new grid, you click the new grid. So this would be a new assignment. You can set up, if it's a school, This is a nice safety feature you can set up so that you have it your school domain, and then only people who have your same school domain can access your account or access that grid. So there are some nice new additional security features that also just make it super handy. So those are the two main things that I wanted to share today. Any other questions or comments as we're going through this?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
For the comments, when other students can make comments or other people, is there a way for the teacher to delete something if it were negative?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
You have complete control of the grid. And for me, I like this because you know, as a teacher, and I wanna just show you what this looks like. When you create an assignment, you have these options. You can choose different video lengths. I like the 90-second is just a nice, keeping it short, right? Brevity is the soul of wit. And then when you go down, you can set up your, you must approve the videos before they become viewable to other people. You can set these different resources that you want kids to have. You can attach. So if you wanted them to do something more complicated, you can attach a whole feedback form. And down here, you can, this is where you can control what and how students can reply to videos. So you can turn on or off video reactions. And so these are like the little emojis. You can turn off or on the number of video views. So again, if you're concerned about different kids feeling bad, you might want to turn off the video views. Otherwise, it shows right in the corner how many times this video has been viewed. And I could see that getting into a contest, right? Of like, oh, only
Very easily.
Very easily, and very easily lead to hurt feelings. So all you have to do, you just turn it off. Like, that's super easy. And then I tend to turn off student-to-student replies.
Yeah.
But this is where you can turn that on. And this is the via video to one another. So they can respond to one another. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's, oh, and you can turn this on and off. When students post a video, they take a selfie and then they can decorate themselves with stickers and things. And kids really find it entertaining, but it is also kind of distracting. So you can turn that off. So all they can do is take a selfie. If you were doing like books, I would give them instructions to, when they take their selfie, make sure that it's the cover of the book when they do that. But I think this is one of the reasons why I like it, because I think FlipGrid has done a nice job of giving teachers control over how much interaction do you want to happen on the FlipGrids, and being able to turn things off and on pretty easily. So even if I posted this and was like, ooh, that was wrong, I can go back in and re-edit this and just turn off those reactions, and then no one would be able to hide them. And I can go in, if a student has posted something, I can delete individual responses.
And if I were to try the Grid Pals thing, I would be able to shut off my, like, be able, like, the hidden or active.
This,
Like
I honestly don't know, Troy.
Okay.
Grid Pals is brand new, but it was unlocked. I didn't have a paid account before. I've only ever had a free account. So this is one of the tools that is unlocked. Now, all accounts, all free accounts have access to all of the fancy features. So this is a part of FlipGrid that I haven't used. So I would be very curious. There is this nice FlipGrid guide. I have not gone through it. But you can get maybe a sense of what are FlipGrid Pals. So this is an area that I don't know and I'm very curious about. So if you do find anything out, please post and share that information. All right, well, we're going to wrap up then today's little talk about digital reflections. Hopefully you've gotten a couple ideas of how you could use low-tech and no tech in order to help gather more student reflections. To me, the whole goal of any of these tools is to hear more from more students, to hear more about what they're thinking, to hear more about where they're stuck, to hear more about their interests. And it's just these different tools that help us be in more places at the same time and help even the playing field so that more students can share more ideas. One final low-tech tip, I've had students where sometimes there are, 5 students who are very, very verbal. People who are maybe like me and are like talking in discussions is super easy for them. And so I have done simple things like I've had a bowl of chewy candy, like Tootsie Rolls or Starbursts. And when my students have come in, I have said, take 3 to 5 candies. And then when they shared something into the discussion, they could eat a candy. And they couldn't talk again until they were finished chewing that candy. You could easily do this too, just by you as a teacher having those candy with you. And then as a kid shared something, hand them a piece of candy. And then they can't talk again. I literally did this with seniors in high school in an AP English class. And then the goal was by the end of the class period, you needed to eat all of your candy. You didn't want any candy left. But you could only share as many ideas as you had pieces of candy. So you could also start, and there are a lot of different ways of doing that, right? Everyone gets 3 tokens and you have to spend your 3 tokens and you can only say 3 things. I liked the candy thing because there was kind of that, when you have something in your mouth, you need to really focus on using your ears. So there's a final low-tech way to facilitate making sure you're hearing from every student, because that's the goal. We want to hear what every child is thinking so that we can help either clarify their thinking, support their thinking, or push them on to the next step. So anything that gets kids thinking and reflecting, to me, is a step in the right direction. So there you go, and hope to see you next time on our weekly web chats.